This is George Dionne of the Rock is George podcast, and this is a KNAC.com exclusive interview with vocalist BRIAN VOLLMER of the Canadian hard rock act Helix. Today we're talking about Helix's upcoming album, Scrap Metal, comes out on January 23rd, 2026 through Perris Records. This album contains one new song, 5 unreleased tracks, B-sides, rarities. Didn't Helix do something similar to this in 2019 with your old school release?
That description isn't really accurate. The first side of the CD is one brand new track that I wrote with Sean Kelly. Sean plays for Gilby Clarke, for Lee Aaron, Nelly Furtado. The other 4 tracks were actually songs that were kind of partially written, and they were left over from the 80s, the late 80s, when we were writing in Kitchener for the Back for Another Taste album. And so we finished off those 4 songs. I rewrote the lyrics, and we rewrote some of the music as well. The B-sides, you were mentioning Old School, I believe, is the album you were referring to, which was kind of the same thing. It got released around COVID and then just kind of didn't get worked. So with any album, there's, usually 2 really great outstanding tracks and then filler. So we were able to cherry pick a couple songs from Old School, a couple songs from B-sides, and 2 of the bonus tracks come from Half Alive. So for all intents and purposes, it's for most Helix fans, the first time they've ever heard these songs.
And Scrap Metal is actually a fantastic album. I listened to it with no pretense that it was old material or anything like that. Could have been released today, could have been released back in the 80s. Everything sounds great and professional. When it comes to this unreleased material, had you always been in possession of it, or did you find it cleaning out a storage warehouse somewhere?
You get tons of material from going way back to the beginning of the band that we'd never released. We had the recordings, but we just never ever did anything with them.
Are you someone that is constantly writing in order to have all this excess material?
Yes. I write with Sean Kelly mostly, but I've written with other people like Anthony Vandenberg, Gord Pryor, and I've been writing with my old bass player, Tony Pelesci. We've got 3 or 4 songs written for the next Helix album. So yeah, always writing. That's why I got in the business in the first place, was to write songs, to perform songs. So I don't think, because the music industry is so tough, that I could go out there and just do the milk run and do like the old songs over and over and over without putting in new material. We do the hits when we play, because that's what people expect when they come to hear us. But we always got 1 or 2 either brand new songs or songs that we haven't played for quite a long time.
Well, let's talk about the new song. Let's talk about Stuck in the 80s. Very good call and response song. I would imagine that this either plays out well live or it's gonna play out well live. Tell me about composing the song.
We played the song on the Nazareth tour. We finished off the year with 7 Days of Nazareth, and the song went over great. I wrote the song a couple years ago with Sean Kelly, and it's essentially just about how the 80s were a great time to live, great time for rock and roll, and just all around living. We didn't have as many restrictions put on everything we do, and we felt much more freer. In fact, the pre-chorus to the chorus after the lead in the song goes, "Take me back in my time machine, back to when we were free, so much more than we are today. I don't know, what can I say?"
It's a fantastic song.
Thank you.
It definitely harkens back to, simpler times of the 80s, and certainly when I was growing up, when you were growing up.
Yeah, and I'm writing a book right now called The Golden Age of the Canadian Bar Circuit. We went on the road about 1976 till we were signed in 1983. And then we came back on the road after, things died down and grunge started to come in. But that was our training ground. That's where we learned how to play our instruments, how to sing better, how to harmonize better, how to put a set together better, how to work an audience better. Um, One of the people I interviewed, Tim O'Donnell, who was an agent down at Duran booking agency, put it best. He said, "This is like playing the minors. You play the minors so you can make it to the majors," and that's what the bar circle was for us. And it was a much more freer time. And I think a lot of the thoughts in that song lyrically come from those happy times I had. At the time, they weren't that happy when you're living on $40 a week and you're stuck in, bumfuck Saskatchewan someplace.
Well, let's detour a little bit to this book that you're writing. When it comes to the Canadian bar circuit, is that where you mentioned that's where you go to hone your craft and how to work an audience and all that, but is that where the labels would recognize you? I mean, here in the States, I think the Sunset Strip was the place for that, and maybe to a degree across the country to New York and Boston and stuff like that. But was that the way for labels to discover bands as well on the bar scene?
Well, they definitely took it into consideration when they were looking at the band, because if you had a following from coast to coast, obviously it meant less work for them to sell the record, because you already had people there waiting to buy the record. I would imagine the same thing happened in the United States, because there was quite a thriving bar scene in the United States. The difference between the States and Canada, though, was that there was as many places to play in Ohio and Pennsylvania as there was to play in all of Canada. So much larger distances, which cost more money to tour, to drive, and it was a hell of a lot colder.
Getting back to scrap metal, when it comes to the 80s demo material, Fast and Furious, Pretty Poison, Hot, Heavy, and Wild, Money Goes with Everything. Was there one that you discovered going through these old recordings that really surprised you, made you wish you put it on one of your earlier releases?
Yeah, probably Fast and Furious, but maybe Pretty Poison as well. But we did major rewrites on those songs, so things happen for a reason. They probably weren't ready to release the songs back in the 80s, so it ended up being different entities by the time they reached this album. Like, for instance, in Fast and Furious, I wrote a middle eight part that wasn't in there before. And Pretty Poison, I pretty much rewrote all the lyrics, except for the chorus.
Were there some lyrics in any of these songs that would have seemed outdated if you released them as is?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Probably the lyrics were probably the first reason why we didn't take them, because lyrically they didn't feel right. If you got a gut feel for that something isn't right or something is right, I always go with my gut.
When it came to, I know you said that you put these together as basically new recordings, the demos. When it came to the B-sides material and the old school material, did you touch those up at all, or were you satisfied with the way they were?
The only thing that was changed in those were the mastering a little bit. Harry Hess did the mastering. Harry plays for Harem Scarum, which I don't know if they're known down in the United States, but it was a big band in Canada, Japan. But Harry's one of the best mastering guys in Canada, and I go to him with all my albums. So from that perspective, maybe a little bit, but not too much. Remember that Tie Me Down, Coming Back with Bigger Guns, and Closer were all recorded just 2 years before on Old School by Daryl. So they were fairly new anyway. It hadn't really been heard by anybody. When that album came out, COVID hit, and then the world went crazy and lost their mind.
Exactly.
And everything kind of ground to a halt. I know that for classic rock acts, it was getting more and more gigs and more and more gigs, and all of a sudden it was like,
you're right. Harem Scarum, not really known in the United States, but one of my favorite bands, and they're still making great music, and it's a shame they didn't get a bigger ear here in the United States.
Yeah, Harry's got a great voice. He's a great person, too. Darren Smith, that plays in that band, was the singer for Jakey Lee. So great players as well.
Absolutely. Helix covers Steppenwolf on this album, as well as it was also on Half Alive. The song.
Well, I grew up being a big Steppenwolf fan. Second album I ever bought was Monster by Steppenwolf. I had Steppenwolf 7. I played the grooves till it fell off. But I got to meet John Kay, I think 3 times over the years playing with him. Fantastic guy, lived up to all my expectations, just like Alice Cooper, same thing. And we actually did that song at the practice hall when we were recording for or writing for Back for Another Taste, just as something to do that afternoon. I feel like we weren't wasting our time, and I think we've come up with a pretty good version of the song. But if you listen to my voice has kind of got that John Kay in it.
I don't think Steppenwolf gets their due. I think most people know them for Born to Be Wild, but they got some really great rock albums and material out there.
Monster was my favorite album.
Yeah.
Songs like Move Over, Who Needs You? Who Needs You?
You could do
Think about a baby. Who did you?
You could do a whole Steppenwolf covers album.
I could. Johnny Cash, too.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was a huge Johnny Cash fan. All those people were influences, though, when we started to write. And with every artist, that's the way it is. I remember seeing Lemmy in an interview, and they asked him what he's listening to and if it influences his music. And he said that most of his influences were the first bands he listened to. He says you never outgrow those. So
that's true. I feel that as a teenager, that's the music that stays with you the rest of your life.
Yeah, and I look back at those songs too, and they had a different sound to them. Alice Cooper was another major influence on my career, and so much so that when I went hitchhiking back in the day, I used to have 2 or 3 Alice Cooper albums I took with me when I hitchhiked. I had Schools Out and Love It to Death, Pretty's for You.
Did you ever get a chance to meet Alice Cooper?
Toured with him.
You did?
Toured with him, and once again, nice person. I talked to his manager. I said, listen, I'd like to meet Alice Cooper, big influence on my career. He said, well, tomorrow night after the show, he said, be ready with your camera. Tell all the band that they want to come in, meet Alice Cooper. Right? So we're sitting there, I'm going, yeah, right, this is going to happen. Sure enough, I come over, took us down to the dressing room. We stood outside. There was somebody inside at the time talking to Alice, and then they brought us in. And as we were brought in, the manager said to me, he said, look, he said, it's just you and Alice. Take your time. He'll answer whatever questions you want. Take whatever pictures you want taken. And he's not going to limit your time. So go ahead. And we went in, and it was just amazing. Alice Cooper was just the nicest, sweetest guy. And they're not all like that, but he was.
That's true. Did you ever get the chance to meet Johnny Cash?
No, I wish I would have.
Yeah.
Johnny Cash's manager was from London, Ontario, where I'm from.
Yeah.
Sam Hollowitz, I think, was it Saul Hollowitz? I have that right?
You got me on that one.
And that's why Johnny Cash proposed to June Carter at the London Gardens, which was an old hockey barn.
Was that the time she turned him down or the time she accepted?
The time she accepted. The story behind that was Johnny Cash was a drunk at the time and couldn't get a gig in the United States. He either wouldn't show up or he'd show up and stay for 2 or 3 songs and then walk off stage. So he needed a manager, so he came up to Saul Hollowitz. And the reason that I know that story is because of my book. There was a transitional period between one-nighters and the bar scene in Canada. And Saul Hollowitz used to be a very successful promoter in regards to one-nighters, high schools, universities, colleges, dance halls. And so Johnny Cash came up and asked Saul to be his manager. And Saul said, I will, on 3 conditions. He says, first off, you got to cut out the drinking. Secondly, you got to get a better woman. And thirdly, I ain't moving to Nashville. And Johnny Cash agreed to the terms. And Saul turned Johnny's career around. And then years later, he introduced him to June Carter. And once June Carter and Johnny Cash got hitched, he became a born-again Christian. And he went to Saul and he said, he said, I want you to become a Christian. Saul goes, I'm Jewish. So I ain't going to do that. And so Johnny Cash fired him, and a couple of years after that, Saul committed suicide.
Wow.
When he died, his son had kind of a chip on his shoulder and didn't go to the storage unit where all his dad's stuff were for a while. But what he finally did, he found a treasure trove of photographs, film, diaries having to do with Johnny Cash and his father. So he released a movie called My Father and the Man in Black.
I have to check that one out.
Yeah.
That's a great
little bit of trivia for you there.
So getting back to scrap metal, the album was produced by bassist Daryl Gray and Aaron Murray. What do they bring to the table as far as production's concerned?
Well, they really elevated those 5 songs that we ended up recording. If it weren't for them, I don't think it would sound near as good. And they lived and breathed those 5 songs for about 6 months. So kudos to them. They really kicked it up a notch. Daryl's got a great, Daryl's in the band, so Daryl knows how the band should feel and sound. And Aaron is actually the protege of Danny Broadbeck, who worked with Dolores O'Riordan. And Danny was the protege of Jack Richardson, who produced the Guess Who, Bob Seger, Alice Cooper. So great lineage of producers. I've used Aaron on previous albums, and he just keeps getting better and better and better. He's just far away from being a huge producer, in my opinion.
When it comes to putting together a mix of material like this, spanning different band members, is it difficult getting, I guess, everyone in on it? Yet I know you got 6 different guitarists listed as credited on this album.
Well, Paul was there for the tracks that we chose from other albums. So like it was Paul playing in the same room, Paul playing on Jaws of the Tiger, on Danger Zone. Same thing with Brent. Sean, I write a lot of the songs with, so he's there just because I write with him. I've never seen a point of writing a song with someone and then taking it to the band and getting them to completely relearn it so they can record it like the guy that wrote it. Does that make any sense to you?
Yeah.
So Sean was in there for that reason. And then, I always involve my guys in my live band, and that's Mark Chitkin and Chris Julke. And Daryl played a little bit of guitar too. I think Gary Bourne's also in there as well, in the same room, and maybe the Pusher. And Gary plays for Sash Jordan.
Oh, no kidding. You mentioned there's another Helix album coming. I saw some information about it on your social medias. You got some one-off songs and some new material. Tell me a little bit about it.
Well, I wrote some songs with Tony Palashi, who used to be in my weekend cover band, actually. And we ended up writing a lot of the stuff that ended up on When Pigs Fly, my first solo album. And Tony's a great guy, and he plays just because he loves playing. He's not a real professional guy. He's not out there playing for any major recording acts, but he has a good feel as a writer. And he's close by, so we came over. We started writing over the last, I'd say, 6 months, and we just started to pop out songs. So we got them to work on. I'm going to go back and write with Sean. Actually, in January, I'm going home for a week. I'm in Florida now, so I'm going to go home for a week and I'll probably spend 1 or 2 of those days writing with Sean. We write really quickly. We'll go to a writing session and come out with 3 or 4 songs, and then we just work on them over the internet till they're done.
You have a song called Gene Simmons Says Rock is Dead that's going to appear on this album?
That's not going to be on this album. Maybe on the next one. Okay. It's never really been out on vinyl. I think it might have been like a bonus track on the Icon album that was put out by Universal. But I always like putting it out myself because I feel that the old labels really don't do the job they should do. But that song came about when I heard about Gene Simmons doing an interview about how he thought a model for rock and roll was dead, which it probably is. But rock and roll will never die as long as you got some kid that wants to be a rock star. Absolutely. A young Brian Vollmer, perhaps.
And you got a lot of new bands popping up today that are doing that classic rock and roll sound anyway.
Yeah. I didn't actually get in to be a rock and roll star. I got in just because I love singing and I love performing. And look where it led me to a full life of music. I never envisioned myself being a lifelong musician, or musician as they call it.
And here we are 50 years later, still talking about Helix.
Yeah, it just goes to show you that you can follow your dream if you put the work into it. You can't just dream that you're going to go somewhere. It's a lot of work, too, and a lot of planning and sacrifice. But if you're willing to do that, you can accomplish almost anything in life. And that's a lesson to be learned here.
Scrap Metal is going to be released on CD and digitally. There are plans for a vinyl release, yes?
I got the vinyl at home, sitting in my living room.
Nice. And
it's on transparent vinyl, transparent red vinyl. It has a 12 by 24 inch poster in the inside. And it also has an idea I came up with. I made baseball side cards with all the players on the cards, and on the back kind of their stats.
Nice.
And that comes with the album as well. And they're all signed personally by the people on the cards. That's an added bonus if you buy that album. But I wanted to try that idea because the thing is, I get people all the time get me to sign albums, and I've seen other albums that they've gotten signed, and usually it's some piece of hen scratch across it, and you go, who's that and what do they play? And they don't know who it is, or they don't know what they play. So on this album, you will know because it will be on that little card.
Now, I read that you were thinking about going to the mom and pop record stores and kind of selling the albums direct to them instead of doing the bigger stuff, kind of like you did back in the day with your first 2 independent albums.
Yeah, like things have come full circle. We were one of the first bands that put out an indie album. Like we're talking 1979. Nobody did that. Everybody would go to the record label and just bang their head against the wall until it bled, trying to get a record deal. And we went, okay, you don't want to give us a record deal? We'll go do it ourselves. Which, looking back, was a pretty big statement for a little green little band from Kitchener, Ontario. But we did it with money from my mother, from Brett and Brian's parents, my manager, our manager's mother. And nowadays I'm doing the same thing. In fact, after we lost our deal with Capitol Records, I started putting out albums. It cost me about $15,000, but at the time, it was all the money I had in the bank to put these albums out. And I put out, I think, about 4 or 5 of them like that. And then in 2006, suddenly we got signed to Sanctuary Records. And they bought all those back titles. And with the money I got from what Sanctuary paid me, I was able to buy my first rental house. And I sold that house at the height of the real estate boom there a couple of years ago. And that's my retirement money right there. So once again, you just got to keep moving forward. And you have to believe that a greater force is going to help you get to the finish line.
You have plans to re-release those albums from Sanctuary and other albums in your back catalog on vinyl?
Eventually, I think we will. I could do that till I die. The first one will probably be Vagabond Bones. And I'll probably add Champagne Communist to that album because I wrote that with Sean as well. And I think that's a great song. But there's also Power of Rock and Roll, first two indie albums, Breaking Loose, White Lace and Black Leather. There's B-sides. There's Bastard of the Blues, Rocket in My Outer Space. Did I miss any? Probably.
No, I think.
Well, there's old school, the acoustic album, a Christmas album, Heavy Mental Christmas. Geez, Never Trust Anyone Over 30. That's kind of a compilation album. Same thing with Eat, Sleep, Rock. But they all got a couple songs on you can't get anywhere else. So they're collector's items eventually.
Is that going to be a venture that you're going to have to pay for yourself, or is someone like Perris Records going to help you out?
No, I'd rather do it myself because then I'm in control because now I have the money.
Right.
So why give it to somebody else? If they want to come to me with a big wad of money. But, you know, myself, guys like Tom from Paris, right? They don't have oodles and bags of cash to spend. You have to be very meticulous the way the money goes out the door. You have to watch every nickel and dime if you want to be successful at this business and do it independently. You can't waste cash. That was a big thing. That was the thing with the labels. They pissed away money like there was no tomorrow, like drunken sailors. And that's probably why they're not here today. But I remember, for instance, we recorded Dream On, the Nazareth song for Wild in the Streets. And we did it, I believe, at Metalworks in Toronto, which is Gilmour's studio from Triumph. And Dean Cameron, the president of Capitol Records, heard it. He goes, "Oh," says, "your vocal in this is not good." And says, "You got to," he says, "I don't know what you were doing. What happened? You can do this vocal much, much better." And Mike Stone produced it. And then there was 3 songs we did in Toronto. Then we went over to England because Stone didn't want to stay in Canada. So we went over to England to the Manor Studios, Richard Branson's studio, and we started every day going to the studio and trying to redo a Dream On. And it got worse instead of better. And Stone was getting super pissed off that it was we were doing this because he couldn't see anything wrong with the vocal either. And finally he said, "Look, screw this. We'll do a different mix. We'll send it back to him and tell him you did another vocal." I said, "Okay, fine." So we sent it back, and Dean Cameron went, "This is great. This is so much better." So, and I believe by that time we'd spent another $20,000 or something trying to get it right. That goes to show you how much money they pissed away. But like they take us out to a strip joint and go through $1,500. Take us out to supper and spend $500 when we were all making $190 a week. You can't say anything,
right?
Because they can't change that anyway. So might as well try to get as much food as you can.
Now, Universal owns the masters to your Capitol releases from 83 to 87. Is that correct?
Yeah, and they don't want to seem to re-release them. I've approached them several times, and I think there should be a law. That's bullshit. You know, like artists, as I pointed out to Universal, I said, I give up time with my family. I did every interview you asked me. I went all over the world making dick money so you could make money, and now you won't license those albums to me to sell to keep my career going. Like they're just sitting on the albums. They're not. It's not like they're putting them out.
They want you to pass away, and then they'll put them out.
Whatever. But there should be a law against it because, like, think about it. When you, for instance, Helix, we went in there, we recorded these albums, we never got paid to record them. So we worked for free, okay, to record the albums. And then once we were done, we were probably like $100,000 in the hole or more to the record company. So then we go around all over the place selling albums to get rid of that debt to the record company. And once it was paid off, they go, oh, we're discontinuing the album and you can't have it. Does that seem right to you? That seems like slavery to me.
I thought there was a 50-year clause in getting the rights back to artist music.
I heard that too, but I don't know if that's correct or not. Besides, I don't know, it's been 50 years.
Not
83.
Yet. It's coming up.
83 is when we get signed.
Yeah, it's coming up.
Maybe. If there is, I'll be going for it.
Absolutely.
Because I've let them know too. It's like no secret that I'm upset. I tell you, I bite my tongue when I talk to people because I don't want to burn any bridges. But in the case of Universal, I just asked so many times, and I could see they weren't going to budge on it. And then finally, I just told them exactly what I thought about them. But I had run-ins with Capitol too.
A lot of labels, I hear this story about labels from other artists too. I talked to Roger Earl of Foghat, and he said Warner's were kind of holding some archival material from him, and he's like, hey, I'll go down to the warehouse and look for it for you. And they're like, no, you can't go down there.
Yeah, and it's our music. All I want to do is be able to sell it. I'm not saying it to Universal, just give me the material. I'm saying I want to rent the material, like in other words, license it and sell it, and you'll make money and I'll make money. I think the way and you know, where's the musicians union? Where the hell is the musicians union? Where is SOCAN? Where is ASCAP? Where are all these publishing rights societies and the union on this? They should become involved. There should be, and government probably would have to eventually get involved. But what I think should happen is there should be a shotgun clause. For anyone not familiar with the shotgun clause in the contract, it means that, for instance, Universal has no rest for the wicked. They say, okay, we want $30,000 for this album, right? Or we're keeping it. But if you pay the $30,000, right, you get it back. But if you don't pay it, then we got to pay you $30,000. That's how a shotgun clause works. And that way, everybody be happy.
Sounds like it. Helix recently finished up the tour with Nazareth that you mentioned earlier. How did that go overall?
Fantastic. Nice guys to work with. Carl, the new singer, amazing voice. He sang for Crocus too, which I didn't know till I talked to him. But we played with Nazareth for many, many years. I think the first time was way back in like 1982 in Northbridge, Alberta. And they've always treated us well. And we did about, I think about 2,000 people on average a night. Casino Rambo, we did 4,000.
Did you ever get any feedback from anyone in Nazareth about your cover of their song Dream On?
Well, they never ever actually heard it live. I think they liked the recorded version. But I know that they were asking us at the beginning of the tour if we were going to do it. We said no, largely because we got so many slow songs that were hits for us. Make Me Do Anything You Want, The Last Drop, Deep Cuts the Knife. You can't do too many of them. We do one in the set, especially when you're playing 40 minutes. So right. We didn't do Dream On. We were thinking to do it towards the end, but we never got around to doing it. But I think they liked the version we did of the song.
Does Helix have live performance plans for 2026 lined up?
We already got our first date. I can't really tell you where it is yet, but I got one concert date for next August. There was another one might come in today. So it's starting to roll. It usually starts to happen towards the end of the year. and then into the early spring. But the dates start coming in.
Good. Helix celebrated 50 years as a group recently. It's probably like 52 years at this point.
Yeah.
A lot of the legacy bands calling it a day after they reach this milestone. Had you thought about Helix calling it a day in recent times?
Not really. You always have your bad days when you get up out of bed and you go, what the hell am I doing this for? But no, not really. This is what makes me the happiest in life, performing, writing, doing the same thing I've done for 50 years. But a lot of bands are quitting just because the lead singer is losing their voice. They can't sing anymore. Especially with rock and roll, it's a distorted sound. I was lucky because I lost my voice in 1976, and I was told I would never sing again. And my manager sent me to a voice coach by the name of Eduardo Johnson, who was the youngest member of the New York Metropolitan Opera, and he taught on the basement of a church in Hamilton, Ontario. And I went, and Ed took me aside, put his arm around my shoulder, and went, "Just stick with me, kid, and do what I tell you to do, and your nodes will go away," because I had nodes, polyps, and didn't take any time off. I was still playing 6-7 nights a week, and by the end of that year, I got rid of my nodes. I never looked back, and I kept going to Ed until he died. He was like a father to me, and I started teaching myself around 1989, and I have some successful students. The girls from Kitty went to me. Tim Hicks, who's a country star, he's had 2 or 3 top 10 hits. He studied with me, but it's a technique, bel canto, bel voce, beautiful voice in Italian, starred by Leonardo da Vinci in the 1600s.
Really?
Yep. And passed down by word of mouth through the ages. And then it died out around 1915 with Corelli. And my voice coach, Ed, he studied that while he was, like I said, the youngest member of the New York Metropolitan Opera. And he found somebody that taught it down there who taught him, and then he taught me. And I went to him every week for about 15 years until he died to learn how to be a teacher. But bel canto is based on science and the anatomy of the body. And there's lots of voice techniques out there, but if they can't be explained, then they're not worth their salt.
So in the 50-plus year career of Helix, what would you say is your proudest moment?
My proudest moment?
Yeah, with the band.
With the band? Oh, geez, I don't know. There's been so many high points, really. Meeting people, which is something I got into the business for, too. We've had all sorts of fantastic, famous people over our career. And every way from Robin Williams to Richard Pryor to, the Trailer Park Boys here in Canada. Geez, I don't know what the biggest moment would be. That, like, there's lots of them. Touring with Kiss in Europe, across Europe in 1983. The first gig we played on that tour, by the way, was in Lisbon, Portugal, and it was the first gig they ever did with their makeup off.
Ah, okay. People were shocked when that happened.
Well, to tell you the truth, and this is going to sound awful, but none of us were really Kiss fans. We were into different types of music, like, I don't know, Ted Nugent. Anyway, when we finally got the gig, and we paid $35,000 US to be on that tour, which was a lot of money back in that day. And we had to reacquaint ourselves with Kiss. But we weren't really like we like Kiss, don't get me wrong, right? But we weren't like real Kiss fans. They're like a damn knitting club. Gene Simmons can't fart without everybody talking about it for 3 days.
I get it. Um, what do you think? Helix got lumped into this label of being called a hair band or hair metal. What do you think of that term?
Didn't bother me. We did a big hair.
But I considered you more rock and roll.
Didn't change what the music was like.
Oh, that's true.
Hey, when we were trying to get signed, we went through every label there was in Canada, and we were wearing cloth, like, cloth, and then we went to leather, and the same label that looked at us signed us just because we changed our image. So image was everything back then. I don't know how we got into the boffed hair. Probably through Fritz, because Fritz was the David Lee Roth kind of guy. And I don't know. It just evolved into that.
Okay. You mentioned your 1999 solo album, When Pigs Fly. Have you ever thought of releasing a follow-up?
I got actually a couple. I did one with Gavin Brown, who's a famous producer in Toronto. It's worked with everybody. It had a couple new tracks, but it's mostly cover songs on it. Probably lesser known tracks. And then I put out one that was originally a Helix album, Business Doing Pleasure, which was supposed to be a solo album for me, and then Paul died, and I got talked into making a Helix album, which in retrospect was probably a huge mistake. But I was very proud of all the songs on that album. I wrote them with Mark Ribler, same guy I wrote Good to the Last Drop with. And once again, it kind of got lost in the shuffle because it was so different from previous Helix albums. But it was never meant to be a Helix album. And then I went and changed the title. Instead of Business Doing Pleasure, I made it Pleasure Doing Business. And I released it on vinyl a couple of years ago. So
it's out there.
It's going to be out there, yeah.
Do you have unreleased solo material that you're sitting on?
Well, I said I was going to write with Tony, right? So whenever I write with anybody, I just write. And Helix grew out of an environment where we were like a roving jukebox. We played all the top 40 stuff because that's what you did back in the bars back then, as far as cover material went. Now, Helix gravitated towards the heavier stuff, but we played everything from Bay City Rollers to Aerosmith to Young Blood by Bad Company, Young Blood, and the Beatles, right? So when I write stuff that maybe isn't Helix, I just put it over into the Vollmer column, and that helps that.
There you go.
Now, so, I guess in answer to your question, I just write. And if it seems like it's a Helix song, it ends up on a Helix album. If it sounds like a Vollmer song, maybe a little bit less metal and more poppy or something like that, it goes in the Vollmer column. And that's about as much thought as I give to it.
Now I see all the
time. Both, I like singing. I like singing country. I like singing everything. But I understand where fans are coming from too. They buy a Helix album and expect to hear Helix, or buy a Led Zeppelin album, you expect to hear Led Zeppelin. So
fans could be finicky.
Well, Rob Halford did put out a disco album, so I don't feel too bad.
And he put out an industrial album too that was a little different for him back in the 90s.
But any artists that have longevity to their career are going to do that.
Yeah.
Because first off, being in for a long time indicates that you're in for the music. You're not in for the money or the girls or whatever, right? It's always nice to have those things. And what I'm getting at, if you're following the music, then a lot of times you write stuff that isn't in that little pigeonhole that people want to put you in. You do write country songs. You do write this type of song. You write all types of songs in all types of genres.
Now, before I let you go, I see you all the time wearing that hat, the steampunk sort of cowboy hat. Is there a origin story behind the hat?
Well, I was putting out my latest solo album, and I wanted to have my face on the cover, and I wanted something to make it different. So I was in a store down here in Fort Myers, and I found this hat. It actually had two little monocles up here too, but they kept getting caught and everything. And so that was the album cover. But funny story, we were out west and in Western Canada doing a gig with Kim Mitchell, and a friend had asked me to get a picture with Kim Mitchell and send it to him when we played with him. And so it's 10 o'clock in the morning. I see Kim going through the lobby of the hotel. So I say, "Hey, Kim, can I get a picture with you?" He says, "Sure." So he walks over and he says, "I will on one condition." He says, "You don't wear the hat. It's not rock and roll." And I was kind of stunned. And so was everybody at the table. Anyway, I don't know. So anyway, we took a picture, and he kind of put me off so much I screwed the picture. But fast forward 3 months after that, I'm in Hamburg, Germany, and we were playing the end of a summer festival. And there's a great big German guy back in the dressing room that's going, "I love Canadian bands. Oh, I love Canadian bands. Helix and Coney Hatch and Kim Mitchell and Max Webster." And I go, "Oh, yeah." He says, "Can I get a picture with you?" I go, "Well, yeah." He says, "You should send it to Kim." He said, "Oh, yeah, I'll send it to Kim." I said, "Well, you can on one condition. You got to wear the hat because Kim Mitchell loves this hat." So we took a picture with him wearing the hat. I don't know if he sent it to Kim or not. You should ask him. So. But I've known Kim Mitchell. Max Webster was the first band we ever played with on a concert stage. And I've known Kim Mitchell since December the 29th, 1980. So a long time.
Did you guys go out for soda?
No, but I think we did a tour with Kim Mitchell. Nice guy. Yeah. Very talented. Super talented guy.
Absolutely. I actually wish he did more.
But he doesn't like my hat.
Well, we'll keep the hat out of it next time, right? Well, Brian, those are all the questions I have for you today. The new Helix album is Scrap Metal. It's out January 23rd, 2026 through Perris Records. Fantastic album. I wish you the best of luck with it, and I want to thank you for taking the time to tell me more about it.
Thanks for having me, and thank you, Helix fans everywhere.